Minnesota Constitution, and it turns out, so you were actually right when we were talking about this a week ago, that the elections are actually determined by the House or by the Senate. So,
that it does require some approval.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's Article 4, Section 6 of the Minnesota Constitution. We'll get into that in the show.
Interesting.
Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. This could be a really interesting episode. For all of those who are watching live, I really appreciate you guys joining us. Most people watch after the fact, and that's all right too, because you're going to get some good information. You're probably not going to hear it from a lot of other places. We're going to dig deep into a race that literally determines the balance of power in the Minnesota legislature. Remember, Governor Walz, he might have failed at getting in the White House, but he's still back in the governor's sorry. He's not in the governor's mansion. He's got the second taxpayer-subsidized home on the U of M campus because there's a renovation at the governor's mansion. I don't know if there's a Walz failed sign still on the top. We broke that story. But anyhow, Governor Walz is the governor of Minnesota still for another 2 years. And 31 days. No, just kidding. I should do a countdown. Yeah. And we have a Senate that's under the control of the Democrats for now. I got to throw that out there. What else are we going to talk about, Jesse?
Yeah, we got a good show lined up here. So, yeah, as you're alluding to there, Scott County is having all these problems within House District 54A. It was the closest district within the state, and it just so happened to also have all of these ballot problems. We'll be discussing all of that. We'll also be talking about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's favorite criminal. Apparently nobody is above the law except for Hunter Biden, so we'll be discussing that. There is another House district.
But hold on. Everyone's talking about that issue, okay? Right. Here's our unique angle. The Fifth Amendment probably doesn't apply to him anymore, and that actually opens up a can of worms. So that's what we want to cover today. Everyone knows that Hunter Biden was going to get pardoned by his dad, and everyone knows that Joe Biden's been lying about it the whole time. And same thing with all the Democrats. And you've seen the videos at this point. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. You've seen them. But have you heard about this potential of finding out about the criminal syndicate known as the Biden family because Hunter Biden no longer has the Fifth Amendment protections? We'll get into that story.
And then, we will also be discussing a residency issue that is going on in another important House district race. While this is a Democrat stronghold district, this could give the GOP a temporary majority for a time period, and it would be interesting to see how the Republicans would operate within that time frame, how much they would concede to the Democrats, even when the Democrats don't even have a co-equal shared majority. We will finally be discussing Omar Fateh, running for Minneapolis mayor, the socialist who is looking to, completely destroy Minneapolis as if it isn't there already. I see in the comments we got Tucker91. Good afternoon, everyone. We got MAGA number 47 pushing a book. That looks good. Razzle Dazzle. Let's get this riot started. Mary Kay, good afternoon to you as well. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says, best part of my day. We appreciate that. And we also got a $5 Rumble Rant from Tucker91, getting us off to a strong start. Make Canada America. I'm with you on that, yeah. And apparently Trump is willing to say that right to Trudeau's face. Trudeau is coming up to him, I'm so scared of these tariffs. We can't survive this. Well, Trump says, if you can't survive it, we'll happily take you on as our 51st state. So I like hearing that as well. I think maybe we do need to make Canada America because it's about time that they had a real leader in charge.
Tucker, you're missing a letter there. You almost had
it. You're taking the M and the A of make. Okay, that's how it works out there.
Classic.
Yes, Razzle Dazzle says like this episode, subscribe on YouTube and on Rumble, and just like Tucker91 showed you, if you want to interrupt us anytime, you can hit that Rumble rant button, and we will read your comment live on air. Running the dials as always, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing there, buddy?
I'm good. I am running 1,000-calorie deficit for a couple weeks, so I'm freezing cold and tired, but I'm good.
No, it's actually just cold in here right now. And by the way, you get so grumpy when you have calorie deficits. You know that? Do you know that? You are.
Yeah.
Well, we're all that way. By the way, it's not you just particular.
I think I'm more tired than anything, which does lead to some grumpiness. But
yes. Yeah, you're a much more pleasant person when you're eating those carbohydrates.
I love
just
carbs
FYI,
so
just FYI. Elusive Butterfly, good afternoon to you too. Thanks. I didn't know we rock. I guess we rock. Awesome. All right, let's get into the story. I mean, this is freaking crazy. And by the way, the post show today for all of our subscribers, if you're not subscribed, go to truthhurtsnews.com. Is going to be on the GOP race for chair. And we got some other dirt. A lot of gloves will be off in the post show. Jesse and I are going to have some fun with that one. We couldn't do this show without our great sponsors today. Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. If you're buying a home, you got to go find it. You're probably not buying that home with cash, but if you are, good job. You're very... In fact, the guys at John Galt Mortgage Company would be very impressed you're buying it with cash, but most of us are financing our homes to some degree. And if you're going to finance your home, go with guys that believe the same thing you do, and they're probably going to beat out the rates of other mortgage lenders. So go to johngaltmortgage.com. Give the good boys at John Galt Mortgage Company a chance at your business. And last but not least, we're brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Scott County ballots. We talked about the story for the last 2 weeks. And then they dropped a bomb on us. You can go to truthhurtsnews.com. Let's pull this story up. Election officials throw 20 ballots in trash, and race decided by only 14 votes. Republicans sue for new election. You know, when I read other news agencies that are talking about it, I'm like, no one wants to say the obvious thing here. Election officials are the ones that threw this away. It wasn't like this just mysteriously blew from the wind of an open window into the trash can. Somebody took it to a trash can.
Yeah.
Now, was there malice involved in it? If there's malice, someone needs to be criminally prosecuted. At the very least, whether there's malice or not, someone needs to get fired. Because you can't do that. In Scott County, it turns out they allow cities like Shakopee to administer the absentee voting. I know this sounds crazy. You know, those people that watch the show, they're my age and above, you just remember there was something called Election Day, and absentee ballots were for GIs overseas. But now you got so many days of voting, and it's not all the same. Yes, people vote absentee ballot, but that doesn't mean you just mail in a damn ballot. Some people absentee vote in person. Absentee whatever. That's what it's called. I don't know. And by the way, even the people that vote in person don't vote the same way. This is a nutty thing about it. So it turns out up until October 18th in Scott County, Minnesota, it's probably like this all Minnesota, but in Scott County, that's what's at play here. In Scott County, up till October 18th, you would actually hand deliver a ballot in an envelope, which also had a secret envelope inside of that with the ballot inside of that. So 3 pieces to this: the overall envelope, the secret envelope, and the ballots inside of that. And as if you were actually sticking in the mail, right? So the outer is right, sent to the actual precinct, right? Because you can't have a secret. Can't be all secret. You know, if you're sending it through mail, they got to know where they're sending it to, and they need to know who sent it. But inside that is a secret ballot, and secret envelope, and that doesn't have any identifiers on it. And then inside that is the actual ballot. Okay, so that's all the way up to October 18th. Then people vote in person by absentee ballot. Whatever. In that case, they stick it in the tabulator themselves. Now, a lot of you guys probably vote in person early, and that's what you did. You voted, and you did in the machine, okay? But this case comes down to the people that actually voted the alternative way by getting it in an envelope and handing it to election official. And the election officials, and we've got it narrowed down to October 17th, decided that somehow there was going to be 20 ballots. Now, was that because they were confused and thought they threw away these secret envelopes and the ballots were still inside of it? I don't know. All I know is I haven't heard anything about these election officials. It's a missing part of the story. So you can go to truthhurtsnews.com. You can follow the story here. But the most important thing is we've actually got a letter. This came out. What's the date on this thing? Was this the Wednesday? 27 November. That's the Wednesday. Is that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? Let me just make sure I've got this right. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Why haven't we talked about it? Because we don't do a show on Thanksgiving Day. And by the way, we don't do a show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's like Thanksgiving somehow has become the longest holiday out there. Has it always been that way? Have I just forgotten? See, I grew up in Wisconsin, and it's deer season. So it's like once Turkey Day's done, I'm always thinking like deer hunting again, right? But, you know, like Christmas, you got Christmas Eve and Christmas. This just turns out, because it's always on Thursday, right? And Friday's a shut. Actually, Dawson, like around here, Wednesday, no one's really hanging around the office either, right?
Yeah.
Certainly Wednesday afternoon.
I don't get Wednesday or the Friday after Thanksgiving paid off, so to me they're still work days, but
Well, and everyone's trying to fly out on Wednesday too. So it's just such a long holiday. So anyhow, this thing gets dropped. I'm not saying they did this on purpose. Am I saying? I don't know. Am I saying that? I don't think I'm saying that. But it gets dropped on Wednesday afternoon. So this is the first time we have to opine on this story. Obviously, we saw it on Wednesday afternoon. Maybe one of these days we'll just start doing special shows at the, when the news comes out. I guess we have done that. In this case, I thought, well, let's just wait till Tuesday. So it actually has been out there kind of in the news cycle since Wednesday. This is from the Scott County Attorney's name is Ron Hocevar. We always get the easy ones around here, don't we? If you see this, and I've got it linked on the article on truthhurtsnews.com, so you can go check it out yourself. I linked the actual Scott County letter, which is really important. One second, I gotta just clear this off my screen. By the way, we'll try to read your comments on Facebook and YouTube as well. Do our best on that. So this is what the investigation has determined. County staff worked to eliminate various possibilities for the discrepancy. Once again, there's actually 21 missing ballots, but one is in precinct 12. They just assumed that was somebody that showed up and didn't want to vote. So they showed up to vote and then decided not to vote. Should we throw out that one as an anomaly? I don't know. It's the 20 is the bigger thing. The 20 is one batch, and it's one day they got it specified down to. It was felt that this was unlikely to be voters changing their mind. This is referring to precinct 10 and not voting due to the number of votes in one precinct. Staff counted signature envelopes and verified the number matched the number of voters on the SVRS report, 87 null for precinct 10. So once again, when I say there's three pieces, the outer ballot is called the signature envelope, or the outer piece is the signature envelope.
Secrecy envelope.
Nope, then it's a secrecy envelope, and then it's the ballot inside of that. Got it? These are like Russian dolls, right?
Yeah.
Okay, applications for absentee ballots were also counted and matched to the signature envelopes, and again, all were accounted for. County staff then checked a spreadsheet report that was provided by city staff tracking absentee ballots submitted in Shakopee. The report was found to reflect a 21 ballot discrepancy between October 17th and October 18th. When the sheets were reflecting ballots received and machine counts the ballots tabulated. All we know is those 21 ballots never ended up being tabulated. That's where I actually get counted, right? Specifically, the running balances of absentee ballots accepted when added to the first day number of direct voters did not total the number of ballots reflected on the tabulating counter. The machine was 20 ballots short. Staff considered if healthcare facility voting, a common area for mismatches due to residents deciding not to vote, could have been an issue, but after learning the dates that the city performed HCV voting and checking the envelopes, this series was eliminated as voting took place after the dates that were determined to be an issue. County staff next ran reports for just precinct 10, matching them against when the city's absentee ballot board was held. It was found that 20 P10, so that's precinct 10 ballots, were accepted by the ballot board on October 17th, covering the voting period of October 15th to 17th, the last 3 days of envelope voting. Remember how I said then after 18th, it switches to in-person absentee ballots? Are you following the stamp story, right? So then the people actually put in the tabulators. So this is the last 3 days of they hand a whole 3-part packaged envelope. I shouldn't even say it that way. Package, right? With 2 envelopes and 1 ballot. The county was unable to recheck the city's secrecy envelopes for the missing ballots as they had not been returned with the city's election materials. So once again, they should have the signature envelope, the secrecy envelope, and then the ballot should be placed in the machine. A request was made to the city for their secrecy envelopes, and the county was advised they had been thrown into the garbage. Where's the firing? You don't throw those in the garbage, right? The county tracked the trash, and they actually did this. They tracked the trash and recycling to a landfill in Burnsville and Demcon, respectively, but learned that the recycling bill had already been sent for shredding. So they're not going to recover. Now, go back to the article at truthhurtsnews.com. The big key thing here is the conclusion by the Scott County attorney. The last 3 bullet points are the key ones here. That they conclude that ballots were likely in their, so they conclude they were in their secrecy envelopes. They think that was a mistake. It doesn't matter. They still aren't supposed to throw those away. And then the secrecy envelopes, which includes the ballot, right, were thrown away into the trash. Okay. Then they say that the ballots most likely will not be recovered. That seems obvious. And even if they were recovered, those 20 ballots, it is unlikely that their chain of custody can be proven to show they have not been tampered with. Why does this matter? This matters because in Shakopee, Precinct 10, in Scott County, in House District 54A, it all came down to an election between Brad Tabke and Aaron Paul. If you go back to the article, Dawson, I got a picture of these 2 gentlemen. People are accusing these guys of, go up to the top. I think it'll show the image. There you go. That's Brad Tabke on the left and Aaron Paul on the right. And that's actually just an image of the Scott County's letter that was sent out Wednesday. Many are accusing these guys of being twins running against each other, or the same guy running against each other, but they're not. Brad Tabke is a clown, and it'd be good to not see Brad Tabke in office anymore.
One thing I'm looking at that's interesting, too, is that, Julie Hansen was the name that was listed on all of these Scott County things before. Contact Julie Hansen if you have any questions. But this isn't coming from Julie Hansen. This is coming from the Scott County attorney.
Which is good.
Right. It shows that this is reaching levels that she didn't want to be responsible for. And
she never got back to us, too, when we reached out.
And what's the point of having a media contact if that media contact is not going to respond to inquiries?
Right.
So especially when we're, doing some of the best reporting there is out there on this issue, you would think that Scott County should, be willing to, share as much information as possible, because if they did nothing wrong, they should have nothing to fear in exposing the truth here. It's a major problem that these 20 ballots were thrown away. You're right to point out that these were election officials that threw them away. It's not like these were, people, random voters who threw their own ballots away. This was the election workers. These are people, people who went in to vote expecting their vote to be counted because they do everything properly, only for election officials to screw this thing up. When it's this close, I think the legislature needs to take immediate action. I would not allow the certification of Brad Tabke. I know that Jim Schultz has argued for similar things, that Scott County needs to hold a new election. I think that's the least that they could do, because if voters cannot be assured that their votes were actually counted, and if voters cannot be assured that the results are actually the results, then elections are pointless at that point, because if we can't trust them, there's nothing to believe in anymore. So they need to hold a new election. They need to get this thing straight. Brad Tabke is an illegitimate representative, in my opinion.
Yeah, for more reasons than just this, but in this case, did he actually win? We don't know. I'm not drawing a conclusion here. Okay, I see K-Wall for life. Is that Mort's former district? Yeah. So this district's actually interesting. Let's get into the politics a little bit.
Yep. And we got Manders 604 says Shakopee resident here. A new election is definitely needed, and I think that's what a lot of the local people want is if they don't trust the result. They want a new election, and Brad Tabke is so disliked in that area. So I think that people are fed up, and like I said, that's the least that they deserve right now, a new election.
So in 2018, Brad Tabke won in this district. In 2020, Eric Mortensen won the district, so Democrat, then Republican. Then it went back in the blue wave of 2022 to Brad Tabke. And then this election, well, that's what's in dispute. All we know is at this point it's 14 votes difference, with 20 remaining in some landfill. Maybe 21, but at least 20 that it seems like the conclusion of an investigation is they were thrown in a trash and not recoverable. Okay, this is a Democrat precinct. Precinct 10 does go Democrat. That doesn't mean shit, by the way, okay?
Right, it was close enough to where, we have to know where those ballots were. It's not like this is a 90% Democrat precinct. This was like 60-40. So it could very well be that a lot of these people are Republican ballots, and the fact that they're thrown out when Republicans are the ones who question election integrity so much, it gives us even more reason to think that, especially when Brad Tabke is the incumbent, it was the closest race going on in that area. This is the only race that really seems that it was impacted by this massive issue.
If I was arguing in court, because obviously I think the left's going to argue, if you just took the average of the votes cast in this district and then you account that for the next 20, Tabke still wins. It doesn't change the election. But here's some very obvious holes in that argument, right? This is early voting in person, right? Well, not in person. Technically, they're in person delivering the 3-part package, right? Who's to say that's not one big family or a church group, that decide we're all going to go together at the same time, and they are solid Republicans? Who's to say it's not a bunch of neighbors that all vote one way? Who's to say it's not some other social club, right? It's 20 people that decided on that day, or those 3 days, technically the window, that they were all going to vote that way. It could just be one big family or mostly a family. It could be all people who were voting for Aaron Paul and would have changed this election result.
Does it seem like Scott County knows who these people are?
That I'd never see. It seems like they should be able to know, because if
based on what they're saying here, it sounds like they should know.
It seems like they should know, right?
And if they do know, they should ask them, who did you vote for?
But you can't certify an election on who did you vote for, right?
Right. Because
can a court do that? Here's the question: can a court do that? I don't know. But no, they can't do this. No. I just thought about this. There is a secrecy in voting in Minnesota, so they're in this troubled area.
Right.
If they were to go down this road,
nobody's obligated to tell the government how they vote.
Yes, and even more importantly, put it as a public record so they can be intimidated. So, yes, they can't even go down that road. Okay, so that's just a moot point. So they probably do, and it's just a moot point because there's nothing you can do about it, right? We know it's a Democrat precinct. It doesn't matter. I just tore a hole into it. I'm sure the left's going to argue it that way, but there's a hole in that argument. You don't know. Technically, all 20 could have voted for Aaron Paul. 19 could have, and 1 could have voted for Tabke. It still changes the election results. Okay? So we don't know. What is my highest likely chance? Probably they were random. Although I would say actually highest likely is they skew one direction, and it could have gone either direction because there was like some voting block and maybe a church group, a couple or family with 3 adult children. I don't know, but it probably doesn't change the election result. But I can't prove that, right? And I also can't tell you right now that the secret ballot or these secret envelopes weren't open and someone purposely cast aside the ballots that they didn't like. We can't even rule that out at this point that we understand. We have no firings by this person. Has this person even been persons? Is it person or persons?
Right.
Because they refer to a board in this case. Okay, so it's not just that Brad Tabke at this point would be taking office. The Scott County actually certified this election already. Like there is a election board in Scott County that has certified the results of this election. Why in the hell would you have certified the results with this discrepancy out there?
And even now, this report still says that the investigation is not complete and remains ongoing.
Yes, but they certified the damn election. And by the way, they are the certifying authority of the election. If it's cross-county, then it goes to the state certification board by the Secretary of State. But this is all inside Scott County. So it is legitimately a certified election at this point. And the only thing that can happen, actually 2 things. One is courts. Number 2, as we're going to get into, the Minnesota Constitution. The balance of power right now in Minnesota House is 67 to 67. I think this is actually really interesting to watch how they're going to govern with a split, there's no majority, like a split House. There's no Democrat trifecta anymore, which is great because that's really bad. But there's also not a Rhino GOP majority. They have to govern somehow 67 to 67 split. Now, with that being said, despite how much I despise the Rhino establishment, getting a win here and getting a majority, I really think that clown Tabke needs to be out of office, and Aaron Paul definitely a much better guy. And so, yes, I hope this thing is decided with a court in this case, and that's just where we leave off, or where the story picks up again. The House Republican Campaign Committee and the Aaron Paul campaign are contesting the election by filing suit in the Minnesota Supreme Court, and they're asking for the court to, quote, determine a vacancy once the current term of Tabke's ends with the swearing in the new legislature, which is January 15th, 2025. Right? Remember, Tabke is technically still a legislator. And, you know, a governor could call a special election. So he's still a legislator. So this require, if this happens, if the courts decide in this case, then what would happen is they would require Governor Walz to write, to issue a writ of special election. And in that case, as January 15th swearing in goes, the House would be 67 Republicans, 66 Democrats, and likely we're talking about Speaker Demuth. A majority leader, I don't know who they pick as a majority leader, right? Jim Nash, maybe? So that's where it really comes into play. Now, does it actually change the dynamics of legislative season? It really comes out with that special election. And we're also going to get into another story when it comes to the residency issue in one of these House districts. But let's go, Dawson. Let's pull up the Minnesota, the A2. This is a writ of special elections. So if you look at Minnesota Statute 204D19 and then Subdivision 2, essentially at this time frame, so this would be at the beginning of the legislative session, when a vacancy occurs and the legislature will be in session so that the individual elected as provided by the section could take office and exercise the duties of the office immediately upon election, the governor shall issue within 5 days after the vacancy occurs a writ calling for a special election. The special election shall be held as soon as possible, consistent with the notice requirements of another chapter of law, but in no event more than 35 days after the issuance of the writ. So in other words, if the legislature takes office on January 15th, Governor Walz has until January 20th to call for a special election, and then of that case, it's got to happen essentially within
35 days.
Yeah, 35 days. So what is that? That predicts is the end of February. So that person's probably taking an oath of office no later than the end of February. So yes, technically if the Tabke could still win that election. Actually, you know what's funny? Tabke doesn't have to be the candidate. In fact, Aaron Paul doesn't have to be the candidate because technically there would be a primary and a general election for this special election.
And endorsing conventions.
And, well, we don't know that. That might. We don't know that.
I don't know. Are you saying that in a special election that, local BPOUs wouldn't endorse a candidate?
They don't have to. There's nothing
They don't
in
have
law,
to,
yeah.
but they could.
They definitely probably will, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyhow, they will have a special election by the end of February, and then that person takes office. Now, if Tabke wins that, it's once again a 67-67 split. And I don't know if there's rules that allow them to vacate the speakership, like they did in the House. So maybe Demuth is the speaker for the rest of the session. But what good is the speakership if you can't move bills? Because to move bills, you have to have a majority vote. So really, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Now, if the special election does occur and
if they
Aaron
were
Paul
able to
wins,
pass nothing, that'd be a benefit. If they do nothing, I'll take that
agree.
any day.
Right. I'm saying there's an argument for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
If Aaron Paul or whoever the Republican is, Aaron Paul might be like, screw this shit. I don't want this mess anymore. And someone else runs. So if the Republican wins in that district, and you can only imagine the spending and the media attraction to this race because it's so important. But if he wins, then the Republicans take office. Really, the big losers here are the Democrats, because right now the best case is it's a 67-67 split. Worst case is they lose the election and the Republicans take office. They're really hoping in this case that the courts don't find in favor of Aaron Paul and the HRCC. They're going to hope that no new election is done. Now, I think as you probably agree with me, and I can't remember who made the comment, that Shakopee resident, that a new election should occur. Just common sense dictates that it should occur. Dawson, you're a very neutral person. You don't even vote, but does that not make sense? Like, just from an impartial standpoint, if we were to say that elections should be sacred and they should have integrity, that in this case, because we can't determine, there's 20 missing ballots that were thrown in the trash and the race came down to a 14-point margin, the right remedy is to just have another election?
Yeah, I think so. What's I don't know very much about this. What's like the population of that place? Like, what's the typical voting numbers? Was it in
These
the
races are
thousands?
usually in like the ballpark 20,000 people.
So I'd say that it must be relative to like whatever percentage is missing, right? So 20 out of
So
that
small.
many. I guess doing it by points would work too. I haven't really thought about it a whole lot.
Well, I actually think that's moot. I think it's actually more or less because just imagine, let's say it was 1,000-point difference,
Yeah.
but then using that logic, it's 1,500 ballots that were thrown in the trash. Wouldn't the equation still work
Well,
out?
yeah, but if it was like a town of 40 people or whatever, and then like 22 are missing, then it's like a whole another issue, you know? So I just wanted to know.
Just because okay, so Shakopee is the biggest city in there, and it
Yeah, I
wasn't-
just wanted to know how many there were. That's all.
Well, yeah. So does that make sense? Like, I guess you're a good person to bounce it off on. I'm just trying to think, like,
Yeah.
isn't this the right remedy here? Is to have a special election? Doesn't common sense prevail? And by the way, I say common sense, fully knowing that the Minnesota Supreme Court is full of Dayton and Walls appointees.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I don't expect the Minnesota Supreme Court to do the right thing here. So I don't want to get people's hopes up on this because, it's Natalie Hudson. That was selected by Walls. Natalie Hudson is the one who is in charge of the Minnesota. She's the Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court. Why would a Walls appointee, why would all of these Democrat appointees do something that is going to hurt the Democrats? I don't see it happening.
I mean, yeah, I wish that, if anything, I wish that the judicial branch could be non-partisan. That'd be really awesome. But I hope that they do another election because it does make sense. And if it doesn't, and the court finds a good reason for that, then I don't know. But I don't expect a good reason to come out.
Jesse, I feel so good that we made such a great argument on this one that Dawson, who best case is an independent-minded guy, in worst case he leans the opposite direction, still sees the benefit and the rationale behind.
Well, nobody wants a stolen election. Nobody wants things to be cheated. Everybody.
Right.
I think everybody wants things to be straight up. Even grassroots Democrats. It's only people who have the ability to cheat that would cheat. So.
I
It's
the
think
same outcry that you'd get with like the whole Musk thing during the presidential election, where it's like a bad taste in our mouths, that kind of thing. But elections should just be put your thing in a box and then it goes somewhere and then it's counted and then it's done. It sucks that it has to be this difficult.
Yeah.
All right. One other thing I want to cover on this because I think it's important. Dawson, I'm going to drop this into A3. Okay. And this is what I just looked at right before we went on air, or as we were coming on air. This is Article 4, Section 6 of the Minnesota Constitution. Qualification of legislators judging election returns and eligibility. Senators and representatives shall be
You want
disqualified.
to scroll down to Article 4, Dawson?
Yeah, right there, Article 4, Section 6. Sorry about that. Senators and representatives shall be qualified voters of the state and shall have resided 1 year in the state and 6 months immediately preceding the election in the district from which elected. That's important, too, by the way. That will be the next story, or one of the stories we talk about today. Each house shall be the judge of the election returns and eligibility of its own members. I don't really know what the hell that means. But essentially, I guess the returns could be rejected by the legislature. Now, remember, the Minnesota legislature has a person who's being right now prosecuted for felony burglary. And by all means, she's already admitted to guilt of at least burglarizing, in her own words, a woman who's suffering from Alzheimer's. And she didn't even get a formal ethics violation convicted. Well, what would be what I'm trying to say? Wasn't convicted of a formal ethics violation?
Right.
Sure. That's the legislature to be determining this. But technically, it sounds like they still are the judge and the arbiter of who is in their body, which is really weird when you think about the politics of it. Shouldn't the people be in charge in this case? But apparently, I mean, it would be chaos if they just totally disregard the results of an election. By the way, stay tuned to January 20th. Oh, no, wait, it wouldn't be January 20th. The Democrats would pull this off beforehand. That would be their first January 6th. Wouldn't that be interesting if they really do it? Like, was it Rankin? Is that his name?
Jamie Raskin.
Raskin.
Yeah.
Like, literally, they don't allow President Trump to be inaugurated. Like,
Right. They don't even have the momentum anymore. I was worried about that a little bit before, especially before the election. But after the results, it was so deafening that the Democrats can't do anything about it. Of course, Trump won the election, and of course he's going to take office. There's going to be some people that maybe try to fight it, but the Democrats are more uniform. They don't necessarily pick up individual fights when even when they want to. So we'll see what the Democrats do. I think that they got a couple of tricks up their sleeve, but there's nothing they can do at this point.
All right. Speaking of interesting fights up at Capitol Hill, this is just interesting to me.
Tucker says, you mean Jamie Raskin? Yes.
Raskin.
Raskin.
Yeah, Raskin. I love it. Okay, so you guys all know Hunter Biden was pardoned by his dad. Okay. Now, what's really fascinating about this part, this is what bugs the shit out of me. This thing is not just pardoning him for the sins of drugs and the gun law that he broke. By the way, Democrats apparently are against stricter gun laws because Hunter Biden committed a gun violation and they don't care, seems like. All that left is now, which, by the way, their foot is in their mouth so bad. All of them said that Biden wasn't going to pardon his son. Hunter or Joe Biden himself said he wasn't going to do it. That bozo clown he's got as press secretary said it. And then he does it, right? Okay. I don't need to get into this. You
Even
guys have
CNN,
seen this.
Yeah, even CNN was calling out Dan Goldman. They
Yes, that was
played
great.
they played the video of him saying, Joe Biden would never do that. And then they said, what does it feel like to see yourself saying that, assuring the American people that he wouldn't do it. And then here he is doing it. And he says, well, I was hoping Hunter would take the plea agreement. CNN goes, you said that after the plea agreement. So, yeah, I mean, these Democrats are trying to do their best with whatever talking points they have, but they know they got caught.
Well, the big talking point from them is, well, you would do it for your son, too. We would all do it for our son. Go ahead, K-Wall.
Oh, yeah, K-Wall for life. We got a $10 rumble rant. Appreciate that. It says, nobody is above a rant. I mean the law. So we appreciate that.
Oh, the great K-Wall. I love K-Wall. And T-Wall is much better-looking counterpart, or better half, I will say. I'm guessing K-Wall and T-Wall will be at the Christmas party, Action for Liberty Christmas party. I also saw Tucker and Glenn Cotton talking about it, which will be great, which is on December 12th. Go to actionforliberty.com if you want to come to the Christmas party. Jesse's speaking. I do the auction, like to help raise money for Action for Liberty. It's so much damn fun. The auctions are great. They are really fun. All right, so the thing that I don't feel like gets talked about enough on this one, Jesse, is it's a blank pardon for every sin that was committed, essentially, for a decade, all the way. So basically, 2014, January 1st, 2014, till December 1st, 2024. That's what it says. That any crimes that may have been committed in that time frame, right? Like, so he's got blank immunity. So that the most interesting legal quagmire that they just put themselves in, and I don't know if they didn't think of this one, because Hunter Biden has just become the most dangerous person in Washington. He has blank immunity for that time period. He doesn't have blanket immunity going forward, but he's got it for that time period. Pull up this story. This is from the Washington Examiner, Dawson. Here it is. Where is it? There we go. Pardon means Fifth Amendment trouble for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden may no longer have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent if called to testify under oath for his actions over the past 11 years after President Joe Biden pardoned the first son, legal experts say. The pardon announced Sunday not only absolves Hunter of his recent legal troubles, but also grants immunity for any crimes he may have committed between. Okay, I've already talked about that. By the way, also, what about the tax laws that were broken too? So there's more than just the ones that he's already been prosecuted for and found guilty of. Scroll down here. In the hours since the pardon, Republicans, along with legal experts, have elevated the significance of what the younger Biden's pardon means for their long-standing investigations, contending that it opens up the playing field for lawmakers to question him on nearly everything he has now been pardoned from over the past 11 years. Under the Fifth Amendment, people can refuse to answer questions if their responses might incriminate them in criminal cases. Obviously, that's the Fifth Amendment, right? You have a freedom, you have the ability to not incriminate yourself. So that's why people say I plead the fifth, right? Because you have a right to not incriminate yourself. But if you can't be incriminated for things you say, then you can be compelled to testify in front of Congress. And what I like about this is, guess who they tried to compel to testify in front of Congress and then threw in prison because he wouldn't do it? Steve Bannon. This is, and I think we might have some disagreements here, but let's get in. Let me read the rest of this. However, with all criminal liability now erased by the pardon, Hunter Biden could face contempt charges if he refuses to testify before congressional panels. Quote, well, this now makes it much easier for a GOP Senate House to call Hunter as a witness about his and his dad's connection to Ukraine, etc., because the pardon prevents Hunter from asserting the Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate himself. Mark Smith, a constitutional attorney and host of the Ford Box's Diner Legal Analysis show, wrote on X. By the way, you know there's some really good shows, legal shows on YouTube. It's so great. I'm sure X and all the other platforms. I love it. It's almost like worse watching like mainstream media lawyers. You can kill the article. You guys get the premise here. I don't know if have you guys heard of this? I'd love to hear in the
comment
thread.
section. Yeah.
Razaz says pardon for treason is just treasonous. You know, the interesting thing is I really don't care too much about this pardon. It just doesn't affect me too much, right? I'm actually kind of glad in a way that it happened because it just exposes these guys are liars. Like Joe Biden himself said he will not pardon his son, and then he does it.
Right.
It just shows they're liars. Joe Biden and the Democrats, the DFL even said this. They said, no one is above the law. This is literally what the Democrats said. They tweeted this out. It's on my Twitter account. Let me just look at my replies here. I think it was from some point in 2023 because I think they were replying to, one of those witch hunts against Donald Trump. I'm going to dump it into Dawson. Let's dump it into B2. This is from Minnesota DFL. If you're not from Minnesota, the DFL is the Democrat Farm and Labor Party. In the United States of America, nobody is above the law. Boy, how'd that one age? Clearly, Hunter Biden is. Because very clearly, Hunter Biden committed felony acts. He lied on a firearms transfer sheet because he was using illegal drugs, which, by the way, he wasn't even prosecuted for illegal drugs. So, was he? What were the two? He had the gun charges and what? Why am I forgetting? Or did he already have the tax charges? Now I'm already blanking out on it.
I can't remember.
There's so many incriminating stuff on this guy, right? On this fake Hunter Biden laptop, right? It's just Russian disinformation, right?
Yeah. So, for me, some of these things that they were going after Hunter on, it's not a big deal to me. The gun charges, whatever. Right. I'm a libertarian. It doesn't bother me. To me, I do think that he was in some ways selectively prosecuted. There's no doubt about that he was targeted and gone after. Not in the same way that Trump was gone after, but of course, unique individuals for unique circumstances. So I think that Joe Biden was actually right to point out that there's a little bit of crookedness within the judicial system, and that Hunter was kind of selectively gone after. And I disagree on this Fifth Amendment thing because just because you are absolved of a crime doesn't mean that you're obligated to cooperate with politicians. I don't think that the tit-for-tat politics of what the Democrats do is what the Republicans should do. I think Republicans should use power for good and not retribution, because the Democrats are showing that, sure, they'll try to throw someone in jail like Steve Bannon because he's not willing to cooperate with the government. But would I be willing to cooperate with this government? Of course not. So when people are refusing to testify, I don't see any issue with that. I don't think people are obligated to do that. And even though he is now absolved from these things and he can speak freely, I don't think that would happen. He's probably going to lay low. And if the Republicans want to try to force him to testify, I could see him refusing. Or if he does have to actually show up, he has every right to plead the Fifth Amendment. Just because you are pardoned doesn't mean that you lose constitutional rights.
Let me throw a wrench in what you're saying, okay? Because I disagree. I kind of agree on the premise that it would be bad for them to take this kind of power and use it against just average people. But we're not talking about average people. We're talking about somebody that was literally in charge of the nuclear arsenal, Joe Biden. And the alleged indiscretion against Joe Biden is that He's had this quid pro quo. It's a whole thing about him selling out his influence. It seems very likely that when it was 10% for the big guy, that was referring to Joe Biden. We don't know. That's not proven, but that's what we believe is the case here. And so because this person was in that powerful position, isn't it important that we understand and prove that that's the case? And so I'm not saying Hunter Biden should be thrown in prison, but if he refuses to get to the bottom of the corruption at the highest level of government, then yes, I think he should go to prison, because they did that to Steve Bannon for the same exact thing. They're alleging that there was some high crimes by Donald Trump committing an insurrection act against the United States government, and because Steve Bannon wouldn't testify in front of Congress, they threw him in prison. Why is it not legitimate for us to do that to them at the highest level?
Because we're principled.
But what's the
because
well, I don't understand what the principle is here. My principle is to expose corrupt politicians. It's the name of the damn show. It's the tagline of the show. Mm-hmm. And so this is where you have the one chance to expose a corrupt politician, because no one can argue.
Jailing Hunter does nothing.
Well, you're only jailing Hunter if he doesn't comply with the subpoena.
And but to your point, I'm not sure.
Hold on, what happens to me if I don't comply with the subpoena? By the way.
And
my ass goes to jail.
Right, and that would be wrong too.
Correct. But they do it.
My principle is that you are not obligated to testify before your government.
What if that can't be the case, Jesse, because then you can't then
in a courtroom, of course, you can be, but
hold on. This would be
the Senate.
This is equivalent to a courtroom.
No, they're not. These are politicians. These are
that's exactly
scumbag politicians.
Exactly. That's why I have no sympathy for them, because they're politicians. Right. Exactly why.
So that's what I mean. How can a person feel compelled to have to testify to politicians? They don't deserve any answers.
No. I would say when you're in that political class, then I have no sympathy for you. I think if you're making the argument for the average guy, then 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Like they always want to bring in these CEOs of companies. I'm like, screw that. Like, let the private sector be the private sector. But this is not the case. In this case, it's just corrupt politicians.
Is Hunter Biden a politician?
Well, that's a fair point, but in this case, Hunter Biden has immunity, right? Because his dad, the politician, gave it to him. So really, he has nothing to lose here.
I mean, but he's still not I'm just pointing out.
He got his position obviously in Ukraine because of his father's political position. But yeah, I mean, obviously Hunter isn't a politician, and the same thing with like the drugs and the hookers. I don't care. It's not my concern. It's like, if Hunter Biden was a fun party guy, what does that do to me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I don't want to be what the Democrats accuse us of. I don't want to be what the Democrats are, weaponizing the government against the political enemies. I want a government so small that we can't weaponize it against anybody. Well,
I agree with that. 100%.
Right. And so, I think that a lot of this is just political. And I mean, there's no doubt that Hunter's a crook. There's no doubt that Hunter is a shady guy who has done a lot of nasty things in his life. So I think that weighs on his conscience.
I think you're making a really good point, Jesse. The problem that I have with it is I just don't see this stuff ending unless you fight fire with fire.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because you're taking a very good principled stance, even though I have no sympathy for the people at play because they're corrupt power individuals, right? Mm-hmm. But in this case, the principled stance isn't going to work because they're going to continue doing this stuff until you fight fire with fire.
I think you got to set the better example. That's the only way. The only way we're going to improve this thing is by improving it. And
I don't know. I think
Hunter Biden going to jail doesn't improve it.
I think that's the disagreement we have. Is the only way to correct this is to expose their corruption, and this is how you expose their corruption. You have
and I'm not sure what the consequences should be necessarily for some of this stuff, because it's more that I just think that they should be expelled from political and public life. Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden, these people shouldn't even be considered as anything to the American people because they're total traitors. So, I just don't think we go towards the world of banana republics. They just tried to throw Trump in prison, and all it did was fire people up even more.
My point is,
and if we try to do it to them, they're going to get fired up.
No, but because they did that, they have got to feel the opposite reaction, and that's what I think is going to be. Because see, Trump said I would throw you in jail to Hillary Clinton, and then he doesn't do it. they actually do it to him.
This is
so
to me, it's turn the other cheek on this one.
Oh man,
Hunter gets a pass.
I
can accept it.
I feel like that's not going to solve the issue long term. Otherwise, I would agree with you.
And also, family first. You got to agree with it that
well, that's the other argument they make is
even above
you would have done
sometimes,
this. We would all do this for a son. I'm like, first of all, my son's not going to be a piece of shit like Hunter Biden. This idea that Hunter
but if
Biden
he was, you
idea,
probably would have your son.
I don't know if my son was Hunter Biden, then he probably should be doing time in jail because he deserves it.
Interesting.
Right?
I disagree with that one.
Yeah, I'd pardon my son. Yeah. I'd pardon my crackhead.
What if your son committed murder?
I'd pardon him.
Really?
Yeah, it's family first.
So do you think so? If Jeffrey Dahmer's father ended up being president of the United States, he should pardon his son?
I guess.
We do have limits to it.
I guess there's maybe some.
All right, we have some limits. Good to know.
Victimless crimes like hookers and blow, and same thing with the gun thing. A lot of it's victimless.
Well, hold on. I think the bigger problem here is not so much the laws that have already been.
Right,
uncovered.
It's the quid pro quo. It's the setup.
The other stuff that he literally gets away with. Right.
It's not the laws, because that's the thing. We don't have the laws necessary to prevent this type of corruption. That's more what's necessary is to prevent that these politicians can get their kids hired into these different things all around the world because. We know that Joe Biden has ties to China and Ukraine, and no wonder we're, almost heading to nuclear war with Russia. It's because he's got all of these deep ties to Ukraine, and we need someone who is America first. So I think the only way to fight is, maybe some laws to prevent the corruption.
The other narrative is, his lost son who was a drug user who's rebounded. I'm like, well, then whose cocaine was it in the White House? Like
Kamala. It's Kamala's cocaine. She's drugged up and
that's
sedated.
Probably true,
There's no doubt about that.
So
but
that's probably true.
And
let's see here. I think, most people are disagreeing with me here. Billy22 says, Jesse, it's not about the drugs and hookers. It's about whether or not we are going to allow our elected officials to be for sale to foreign interests. I would agree with that. That is the main issue at hand here. But that's it's those are the laws that people have chosen to go after him with. That's why, same thing with when the Democrats tried to go after Trump. They came after him with all these lies. I say just stick to the facts. And let's see. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, if my kid was Hunter Biden, I'd throw his ass in jail. Tucker says, no, Jesse, at a certain point it becomes enabling. M. Bauer says, break the law.
That's right. That's actually
do
a
the
good
crime,
point.
do the time. Glenn Cotton says, I like Solomon's wisdom in Proverbs. He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous, both alike are an abomination. Letting off your flesh and blood for being evil isn't wise for society.
I mean, you can.
And I'd agree with that, for the most part. To me, it's just I can't control everyone. I can't, and especially with Hunter, it's mostly victimless. The corruption that is, it's
you
Joe.
keep saying victimless because you're referring to the ones he's already been prosecuted for. Mm-hmm. And I would grant you that if it was narrow to those crimes. And then, by the way, I would actually award something to Joe Biden if he pardoned anyone else who had that on the record prosecuted for those crimes.
Right.
And by the way, also advocated for changing those laws, which he's doing none of.
Right.
So he's shown that Hunter Biden's above the law. You are an asshole for doing that.
Right.
Yes. The problem that I have is it's this blanket immunity for things that are far worse, and I think the audience is understanding that, far worse than him smoking crack
right.
or lying on a form.
Right, exactly. I mean, he was on that Ukrainian energy board while knowing nothing about energy. He was only there because he was Joe Biden's son. They were going to, they had people coming after him. That's why the quid pro quo happened in the first place. Then they accused Trump of doing the quid pro quo when it was actually Joe Biden who was guilty of it. So I agree that, those are the real issues at hand.
Right.
And Joe Biden's corruption is the issue, but it's over. And Joe Biden's out of there. It's done. And so it's not one that I feel a need to continue to fight. I think it's done. It's over. Let it be.
I know, and I sometimes wonder what are we missing in the media right now because we're trying to focus on this story. What do you got before I move to the next topic, Dawson?
Huh?
Oh, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just lost in thought over it.
This would be a great opportunity to bring up. If you need to get your life in order, if you're Hunter Biden, you don't need to be Hunter Biden. I don't know if he can get his life in order, but if you got to get your life in order, it'd be great to go listen to the great Jordan Peterson. Jordan B. Peterson, as they call him. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who's coming to St. Paul, Minnesota on January 27th. Who knows what the legislature will look like at that point? We're giving tickets, 2 front row seats to this. All you got to do is sign up at truthhurtsnews.com/JBP for your chance to win these tickets. Got a great chance of winning them. They're awesome. It's like $500 some tickets to listeners of this show. Go to truthhurts.news, truthhurtsnews.com/JBP.
You're dipping into Hunter's stash there a little bit.
Yeah. All right, next story. This is going to be quick here. Residency contestant House District. This is on Alpha News. It's going to be a quick story because, quite frankly, and I know Paul Wickstrom, and he's told me about the story. We briefly discussed this. This is a very left-leaning district in the inner metro area. Curtis Johnson was actually the victor of this race against Paul Wickstrom, the Republican. Paul Wickstrom filed suit contesting the election results because Curtis Johnson apparently doesn't live in the district. Now, here's what I'm going to say about this. He probably doesn't. He probably does not live in the district. Is constitutionally ineligible because he didn't live there 6 months prior. Johnson's motion, which he filed, says that the case should be dismissed. Says he registered a political committee to run for the Minnesota House of Representatives in January 2024, and then in March signed a lease at an apartment complex in Roseville and began living there, even as he and his wife were searching for a new house in District 40B. Johnson's attorneys also claim that Johnson lived in the apartment from March through early November, but because Johnson, quote, usually worked from an office or a coffee shop, he did not set up internet at the apartment during the busy campaign season. Johnson would often work all day, door knock, and come home to the apartment to sleep, just to sleep, right? Johnson's attorneys wrote that there is, quote, no case law showing that a court ever entertained a residency challenge under the election contest statute after an election has been held, end quote. In this case, I mean, let's just be honest. This guy probably wasn't living in the district. They pull a fast one. They move in a guy, or he decides to move in and take the opportunity of a retiring legislator and win the Democrat seat. If this was to somehow be decided by the court, this would be another special election, and it would take place by the end of February. This one's going to go Democrat for sure. So all it would do is give Republicans a slight majority for that beginning period of time. And even though the Republicans would be in charge of the committees, in charge of the speakership, nothing would move in the end because the Democrats would win the special election, and then they would take office by the end of February when bills start moving. And in order to pass a bill, you have to get a majority. So this is much to do about nothing, in my opinion, even though Paul Wickstrom is probably 100% correct in the sense that this guy wasn't living in the district. And by the way, this isn't a Democrat thing only. We know lots of Republicans that literally have run for office not living in their own district. These guys just don't give a shit about the rule of law.
Yeah, Gene
no one's
Dornink,
above the law except for all the politicians. What were you
Senators
saying?
Gene Dornink and Tory Westrom, both Republicans, both had residency questions filed against them in the last election that they ran. So you're right. This is a bipartisan problem. There are crooks on both sides.
I mean, listen, it's reasonable to believe that somebody literally didn't put internet in this apartment they just all of a sudden rented just in that 6-month period of time. And they were literally working in the coffee shops. It even says in there that they were out busy door knocking all day. Really? You're door knocking in a district that's like 65-35
Right.
Democrat? You're door knocking all day. You're so busy. Whatever. Just common sense says this person's lying and didn't live there. But it's reasonable to believe that this is a case. Terry Time says Bob Barrett got thrown out for living in a district, and I think he still owned a house in the district. That's actually a very interesting one because this has happened. Now, this was not contesting election results, so this is kind of unprecedented. That was actually while he was a legislator, and that ended up in a special election. That was a really, really fascinating case. In that case, it was just overwhelming evidence of, I think it was trail cams, if I remember that story right. This is like 6-7 years ago. But like trail cams showing that he wasn't going to this property that he was his supposed residence, and then showing that he was in another one. So unless you're going to do some really deep diving investigation, yeah, it's probably not going to end up making a lick of difference in the courts. Last story. Let's go to radical leftist Omar Fatah, the guy that wanted Uber drivers to basically be all millionaires at the mercy of the people using Uber. Just let them unionize and screw up this wonderful private sector business that was created.
Yep.
He's run for Minneapolis mayor. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. No, this is a really interesting thing because, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a test for Minneapolis. Do you really want to destroy Minneapolis? Hold on. We got a $5 Rumble Rant. I'll get to that first. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot says, not to defend Tory Westrom, but he might not have been able to see where he was living. And that's right. He does suffer from some blindness. So, maybe he just was unaware where he was being driven to each night where he was laying his head to rest. So I guess, that's a fair point. maybe that's why he was ultimately allowed to stay in that district. So
it definitely was not.
It might have been. I don't.
That might just be a joke.
Maybe.
This Whiskey Tango Foxtrot's a pretty funny dude.
Yep. But yeah, on this Omar Fateh thing, he is probably the most radical leftist, at least within the Senate, probably within all of the entire legislature. He's even disliked by other Democrats within the House and Senate because of his the way that he goes about things. The Uber and Lyft bill, they were not happy about that. So go ahead and pull up the D1, Dawson. This is just the Wikipedia page showing that the Minneapolis mayor's race. Right now, Omar Fateh is only one of two candidates who is announced on here. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. To show the candidates. So as you can see, there is Omar Fateh. He still does not have a campaign website as far as I can tell yet. And then Dwayne Davis, who was the chaplain of the Minnesota Senate, is also a candidate who is running for this office here. So Jacob Frey, the incumbent mayor, of course, we all know Jacob Frey for his pandering to the Black Lives Matter movement and allowing Minneapolis to be destroyed. He has told the Star Tribune apparently last month that he is looking like he is going to run for re-election, and apparently they welcome Omar Fateh into the race, saying that this gives them a clear contrast to make, which, of course, Jacob Frey, who could be happier about this than him, because now he gets to look like the more center candidate, especially when you're running against someone like Omar Fateh. So, let's go ahead and pull up the D5, Dawson.
It really is. It just shows how crazy Minneapolis is when Jacob Frey is the common sense candidate,
right?
Because there's no chance for a conservative, so you got to go with I was gonna say moderate. How do you call Jacob Frey moderate?
He's not.
I guess he's a radical leftist who actually believes there should be police. Would that be fair?
That's even tough to say.
Well, he definitely wasn't for defunding the police.
Right.
It seemed like the one somewhat common sense idea he had.
And I'll be getting into the defund the police thing. But first, let's go to the D5, Dawson. This is one of the other people that is running. I watched that video. It's not really worth everybody else watching, but he basically, he's a big time liberal pushing all kinds of crap. He even finished the video by saying, he obviously made this video a while ago because he says, and let's do our part and help elect our very own Tim Walz and Kamala Harris to president and VP. So he obviously hasn't updated it since, but
Dwayne leads with love.
Yeah, exactly. So he I don't know if he's actually open to defunding the police. He doesn't have an issues section or anything like that. In his video, he talks about how we need safe streets. I wonder how you get them. That'll be interesting to see how this guy ends up shaking out in this thing too, especially since he was the former or maybe even current Senate chaplain. So, and that shows a problem with the legislature too, that that's the guy that's your chaplain. I don't know about that.
Oh, they get worse than that.
Yeah. So, so it'll be interesting to see how that all works out.
Wait, hold on. Kill the window of Jesse here. I want to read this article on the very bottom. His work in partnership with community members has resulted in awards and recognition from Outfront Minnesota, Lavender Magazine, and Howard University. Is this a gay guy? I think he's a gay guy.
He was a little fruity. he sounded, I don't know.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, he's got Outfront Minnesota and Lavender Magazine, so...
Yeah, banning so-called conversion therapy.
Yeah.
Could be.
Well, hold on. Who is Dwayne? Where does congressional staff? Let's scroll down. Usually at some point you got a bio of your personal life.
And his college sweetheart, Kareem.
Kareem? Where's that?
At the very last paragraph there.
Well, that spelling would be a dude.
Oh, yeah. When marriage equality was achieved in Washington, D.C. Yep. All right. Well, good to know.
Yeah, there you go.
So people have the choice. You're given a very good choice here. You're given the choice between Jacob Fry, who's destroyed Minneapolis, this guy, or you get socialist Omar Fateh. So, Dawson, let's go ahead and
This guy.
pull up the, let's see here. Go ahead and pull up the D2. Because in 2021, there was an important initiative that was going on within Minneapolis where they wanted to replace and abolish the police department. This is something that, Keith Ellison and all kinds of people, Ilhan Omar, were on board with this. And sure enough, Omar Fateh was a part of it too. Omar Fateh was on board with this. He endorsed the policy to abolish the Minneapolis Police Department. Luckily, this was defeated. Even the residents of Minneapolis weren't on board with abolishing the police and replacing it with a phony Department of Public Safety. It was going to defund it in lots of ways. It was going to set a new minimum for what they could actually be given. And, these communities, the answer isn't defunding the police. I think they all know that. But it just shows that Omar Fateh and these other radicals would have chaos going on in Minneapolis. They would let certain criminals off the hook while making criminals out of regular people like you and I, because, Omar Fateh is as radical as it gets. Let's go ahead and pull up the D3, Dawson, because Omar Fateh is, he's a racist. He is anti-white, and he made that very clear on the Senate floor. He was pushing, he said that, go ahead and scroll down. I can't remember exactly what it was. He said about Nathan Weissenberg, Democrats also applaud politicians for calling white men terrorists, as Senator Omar Fateh recently did. Fateh spoke against the common sense amendments to a bill allowing the driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. He claimed that the threat did not come from immigrants, but rather from members who sit in the front, gesturing to Republican legislators. Of course, Nathan Weissenberg was sitting up there. They had a little bit of a back and forth, and Nathan Weissenberg, this just shows that Omar Fateh is, it's not like, if any Republican would have said anything along these lines, that, the real criminals are the ones who look like Omar Fateh. Could you imagine the backlash that would be going on? It would be insane, and probably rightfully so. But when it's done the other way, they're celebrated. And, this just shows the style that he has, and it shows that he cannot be anywhere near power. He can't be trusted with it, especially when he had deep connections with the Feeding Our Future scam, the Feeding Our fraud. He's in commercials for that thing. He's gotten in all kinds of trouble with Somali TV, having commercials on there that aren't properly disclosed. His brother committed election fraud by giving out absentee ballots or something like that when he shouldn't have. Back in one of his earlier primaries, Omar claims he had nothing. I didn't know anything about it. Really, it's just your brother. And let's go and pull up the D7, Dawson, because last thing I want to say on Omar Fateh here, it's important to be clear that, with Trump coming in office, there is going to be a new standard for illegal immigration, that we are not going to tolerate it. He has pushed to make Minnesota a sanctuary state for illegals, which means that he is, of course, going to try to make Minneapolis a sanctuary state for illegals. That means that they will not...
It already is a sanctuary city.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
That's right.
Is.
Yeah, that's right. I was confusing something for a second, but you're right. So that means that he will not cooperate with ICE, and I guess that's also a perfect test to see how Jacob Fry is going to be as well. This is going to be the issue of the time, because that's the issue that Trump is leading on. That's the issue that the American people are fed up with. That's probably one of the largest reasons that Trump won the election. So when we have radicals like this who are prioritizing the illegal aliens over American citizens, I don't think people are going to tolerate it. I do expect Jacob Fry probably to win this re-election. I'd like to see someone who's well-respected, who can actually win, get in that thing. It's going to be tough for them to pull it off, but especially with someone like Omar Fateh in this race, we need the people of Minneapolis need a real person to vote for, and, accepting that Jacob Fry with the, business as usual is not going to cut it.
Yeah. Good reporting there, Jesse. Definitely a guy we've talked about quite a bit on this show and written about at extraforliberty.com. But that just shows how lost of a cause Minneapolis is. Sad.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we couldn't do this great show with our sponsors today. Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, call Warren at 612-419-7453. He'll be at the Action for Liberty Christmas event, by the way, and the after party. And also, we got to thank our sponsor, John Gall Mortgage Company. You can go to johngallmortgage.com when you're trying to buy a home. Give them a chance at financing the home. You're supporting people who think like you. And thank you to Alpine Cap Tree in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Thank you to the Rumble Rants. Thank you to everyone that comes here and watches our live show. I absolutely love it. Bill Dingston, will Omar's opponent, Andrew Schmitz, challenge Omar for mayor?
I also see Whiskey Tango Foxtrot HF2409. Rhino Ron Creech's bill to keep illegals in Minnesota, and that's right. He had a bill where he was wanting to fund attorneys. He was trying to pay for the legal costs so that illegal aliens can continue to stay here, and that's supposed to be a Republican? I don't know about all that. He's, Rhino Ron Creech is just like Omar Fateh when it comes to the issue of immigration. So I think, and let's see, Razzle Dazzle, one last comment here then. Fry is less of a threat to Christians than Fateh. Sharia law would be in full effect if Fateh is elected. Everyone should worry. Yeah, I mean, especially with the ballot harvesting and everything, people should be on the lookout. People should be aware of what's going on. And the Minneapolis mayor is going to be a huge fight. It's going on next year, so we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on what goes on.
Thank you to the Rumble Rants, Tucker, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and K-Wall for Life helps power the show. Also, what helps power the show are our subscribers. We need a name for you guys. Truthers? I don't know. It sounds like it's already taken by Trump's Truth Social. Premium subscribers, platinum subscribers. We got to come up with a name. Let's talk about it in the after show. We got to have a name for the people that support the show. If you want to do it, $8 a month. It's so helpful. Or $80 a year. We give you a month off. It's so helpful. It gets us. I mean, we got lots of fun stuff to talk about in the new year. I just gave it another tour today of the studio. We are going places. We need new media. I want to talk about this in the post show too. But anyhow, you get a free Locals account, and you get our premium content. All you got to do is just go to truthhurtsnews.com. On the very top, click support Truth Hurts News and sign up to become a premium subscriber. And then you get the juicy gossip and the behind-the-scenes stuff. Today, we're going to talk about the Inman GOP leadership struggle and some things we know only for our premium subscribers. It sounds right saying premium subscribers. I'm just going to go with that until we come up with a better name. Weigh in on that post show. We'll be live in 1 minute. To everyone else, we'll be back. Oh, one other show note here. We are at show 191, and we want to do 100 shows, hopefully every year. So we got to get 9 shows in. So this is fun. We're going to do some Sunday night broadcasts, and I just confirmed Mr. Straight-Laced himself, William Beck, will be doing some of these shows. We are going to get the blonde Matt Walsh back.
And he was actually the author of one of those Omar Fateh articles that we pulled up. So, yeah, credit to William there. I should have mentioned it before.
That's right. And then you could tell him how you were right and he was wrong about Ron DeSantis. So we can have a lot of fun. But, yeah, it's been too long. He took a full-time gig in Cottage Groves, or Newport, not Cottage Grove. So he's, not able to do the show these days unless we do special broadcasts. So we got a schedule coming up that's going to include Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then Sunday, and then one final show. I think it's on the 29th. Dawson's going to be out of town. So, and then we're going to do one special Rumble studio show. So, yeah, we got a lot of things coming up. I am so excited about December, and I'm very excited about the new year. We'll talk about that in the post show for all people who are subscribers to the show. If you're not, go to truthhurtsnews.com. Even if you're not watching this live, you can still sign up and watch the show after the fact. To everyone else, we'll see you back here on Thursday. Take care.